In the last video, we saw how to factor by GCF, so looking at all the terms and seeing if there was a pattern among all the terms, but now that's not always going to be the case. We might see a pattern among some of the terms, but not all of them, so maybe if we look at the terms and group them in a certain way, we can see something a little bit differently. So when we see a pattern among some of the terms, what we're going to try to do is factor out the common factors in that in those terms and see what we're left with, and this is called factoring by grouping. So I have two examples here. I'm going to do the first one and then I'm going to have you do the second one. So if I write this out, 3AC minus 5BD plus BC minus 15AD, I want you to pause the video and see and think about the patterns or the different numbers and variable combinations you see in here. See if there are terms that have certain things in common. Okay, well, I think there are some patterns here. It just depends on which way you want to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this ever so slightly. I'm going to move this, or I'm going to kind of swap the order of these two terms. So I'm going to write this as equals 3AC plus BC, and then minus 5BD minus 15AD. And I did that because I noticed that there was a 5 and a 15, and okay, 5, 15. They're both divisible by 5. Okay? So, but when I did that, notice that there was a C in both of these two terms. So what I'm going to do is factor out a C, and I'm left with 3A plus B. Okay? And so next, what I'm going to say is, okay, so I just took out a factor from these two terms. I'm going to see if I can do the same thing with these two. So if you want factoring by grouping, I tend to underline the terms just so I can keep them together in my mind. And also remember, if you have a minus, you can change that to plus and negative. That's fine. So I'm going to change this to plus, and then from the second set of two terms, let's see what is in common. Well, they have a D in common, and I believe they have a negative 5. So when I take out that negative 5D, I'm left with, well, this is going to be B, yeah, plus 3A, okay, which is precisely this first term, just in a different order. So then, now, this is the tricky part. Students are generally able to get to this part, but then this next part is like, okay, well, now I see that each of these two terms have a 3A plus B. So if I remove that common factor of 3A plus B from each of these terms, term 1 and term 2, what I'm left with from term 1 is a C, and then term 2 is now this minus 5D. Okay, and so this is where factoring by grouping is really helpful because we get product of two binomials, typically. Okay, so now what I want you to do is try the second example. Oh, and then we're done with that one, by the way. 2x cubed minus 18x plus 5x squared minus 45. Okay, I want you to try this one on your own, and then when you're ready, resume the video and see the solution. And so here's the solution. What I noticed was when I looked at this first set of two terms and then the second set of two terms, at least in the first set of two terms, there was a 2x in common. So I took that out and got an x squared minus 9. Second set of two terms, there was a 5 in common. Took that out, have x squared minus 9. Next, now I'm looking at this term and this second term. Okay, in each of those there's an x squared minus 9, so that I factored out front, and then from term 1 I have the 2x left, and from term 2 I have the 5 left. So that's where those go. And then now this one can technically, you can go a step further, but we will see that in the next video. Idea of factoring by grouping, you're doing GCF just on a smaller scale. And that's really all that there is to it. The key, or one of the indicators for factoring by grouping, is that you have at least 4 terms. Okay, you'll notice that, and that's partly because you have to break it up into 2 sets of 2 at minimum. So this one we had 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and this other one we had 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So you need at least 4 terms, and that's when you're generally going to do factoring by grouping.